I'll be honest with you, I'm a little tired of doing the dental cyber attacks, and yet the hits keep coming. Another large DSO group went down this week. MCNA maybe impacted over 9 million patients, sent out a notice on May 26th that they had a cyber attack as well. This is on the heels of both Great Expressions and Aspen Dental. So over the last 6 weeks, if we're all being very honest, dental practices, large DSOs, have not been doing a great job of keeping security in check. Also on the heels of the ADA cyber attack just earlier this year as well. So, we continue to say, it feels like a daunting task, quite frankly, as a small independent operation to be able to keep your data secure when a lot of these larger groups are unable to do that. But on the flip side, maybe the vulnerability is less. I do think the more employees you have who potentially open crappy emails or do things on the computer, not maliciously, but open a link or do whatever, end up putting the practice in vulnerability. And so, we had a practice pretty close to us that actually had a cyber attack. It was the patient had come in, hopped up on their free Wi-Fi, which also happened to be the same Wi-Fi that the iTero was using for their connectivity as well. And so patient hopped on in the waiting room, was doing a little work. Virus was on that computer, that laptop. It hopped across the Wi-Fi, hit all of the scanners in the practice and knocked them out. And so just another PSA, if you have a public Wi-Fi or a guest Wi-Fi, make sure it's not the same Wi-Fi that you're using for your intraoral scanners or any of your other technologies in the practice. Because if someone comes in with a virus or malware on their laptop, it very likely can hop across and grab your system as well. So we keep ours locked down. If it's any of our stuff, we have a separate Wi-Fi that's not accessible to the public, and we have our free Wi-Fi published for them and their use only. Another really kind of fun story for the week. There was a Wheel of Fortune episode that came out on Memorial Day. I don't know if you were watching, Jeff, since you were sitting at home with your potbelly pig in the rain, but there was an episode that was a Star Wars themed episode that featured a dentist who came on, who actually solved the final puzzle and won some major cash for the night. So that was kind of cool. Dr. Jeff Powell of Sherwood Dental out of Arkansas won a big prize. It doesn't disclose how much he won, but won a big prize out of Wheel of Fortune on the Memorial Day episode. So that's kind of fun to see dentists out in the wild, doing like normal things that other people.
Yeah, they are in their natural habitat.
Right. All right. The last thing that I think is important to note is that as the debt ceiling is starting to be negotiated in Congress to come up with terms for how they're going to manage moving forward with financing the government expenses, I think it's of importance to note that likely in passing the debt ceiling, the ceasement of student loan repayment programs will end. So is that a double negative? The ceasement will end. It means that student loan repayments that have been on hold since COVID, that will end as of the approval of the debt ceiling package. So that's housed inside there. That's a pretty big chunk of change that they're hoping will go back into the student loan repayment programs, but certainly does kind of bring up some interesting discussion about what that will do to the economy when all of that money is being shifted back to student loan repayment and away from the gross GDP, I guess you could say, of consumer spending. But that is something we should be watching. That certainly impacts a good number of viewers and dentists alike. If they've been in a pause during the COVID time period, it looks like that will probably come to an end. I don't know what that means overall for Biden's student loan program of wanting to eradicate the debt for a certain level or income level for individuals, but we'll be watching all that. But I do think it does warrant noting. And with that, that's the news.
Well, JB, I also had a question because this came up it actually came up in our feed on Facebook. So getting some inquiries about the employee retention tax
Yeah.
credits. So maybe that's something that we can add to next week.
Sure. And I can at least speak on that very quickly. So
That would be great, because it would be very timely, because we've had some inquiries about that.
dentists are absolutely eligible for the employee retention credit. So if you have not filed or haven't discussed that with your accountant, the original advice that came out, and was the original advice from our accountant as well, is that dentists would not qualify. There were some changes that occurred in 2022 that then meant that dentists running their practices during COVID would qualify for the employee retention credit. The biggest caveat I would say is that there's a lot of scams out there right now with employee retention credit accounting firms specific to that, basically wanting to process this. And let me give you a little insight. So let's just say on average, a general practice might be eligible for $60,000 to $80,000 of an employee retention credit back. So that would be cash back to you for keeping employees employed during the COVID pandemic. There is a percentage that most of the firms are going to take from that particular allotment. I've seen anywhere from 10 to 15%. Certainly, if it's any higher than that, you should scratch your head and look around. I would just tell you. So we filed for it back in summer of 2022. I haven't seen the money yet. I haven't even seen the signature of paperwork. We sent our first batch in and it got lost. And now we're on our second batch, where I would definitely recommend you do certified mail, be able to track your document package to the IRS. But there are legitimate companies. It's still going to cost a percentage. They're going to make $10,000 to $15,000 likely from each individual that they're working this for. So they do have a financial incentive to do so. But either talk to your accountants. It sounds like the ADA had also published a few individuals that they had sleuthed out that you should not be working for. So go to the ADA website. Even if you're not a member, I think you can search the employment retention credit and find out who those individuals are. They had sent out a warning a couple months ago, which we did report on, about employee retention credit fraud. And then if it's coming from your bank, it would seem like it's more likely to be legitimate, and that these are individuals that they've seen be successful at obtaining that credit back for their clients. So the particular person that posted actually was a classmate of mine and Mike's. He was asking specifically about a local bank here who had made the recommendation. I do think it warrants investigating. I will tell you there is a time limit though on filing. So certainly if that's something you want to pursue, probably should get to looking at the requirements for the documents.